I come from, Greenwich, which is a, wealthy Republican suburb, and it's about 1/3 the size of Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is an urban environment where I was teaching public school, and yet there are more people that voted out of Greenwich than voted out of Bridgeport. And it's so important to go into our cities and tell people why your vote counts. And it's so important that politicians go in there and look people in the eye and try and explain how good government can make a real difference. In Bridgeport or Hartford or New Haven, 3 of the poorest cities in the United States of America. All right, so was it worth it? Would you do it again? I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I'm proud of every person. It didn't get much notice, but President Bush did just in the last month or two, in the face of some stiff opposition in Congress, say we're no longer are we going to have the illegal wiretaps. Damn it, I'm going to submit it to the FISA court before I wiretap anybody. And I think that was a small victory. I noticed that the Democrats, they're pretty timid, but they have gone forward on these earmarks, and they have said, look, at least we're going to have to identify the congressman who's trying to have a gold-plated bridge in his district. And I think that's maybe the beginning of the end, but we're going to have to hold their feet to the fire if you believe in the reforms necessary on that process. And in the war, I go back and forth on that. I mean, all during our race, I heard, 2 things. Listen to the military, and it's better to be bipartisan on the way out. Well, I thought on November 7th, the people of the United States of America spoke loud and clear. There's no military solution to what we want to accomplish in Iraq, and now's the time for us to start redeploying our troops. I thought Casey and Abizaid, our ground commanders in Iraq, were very clear. They said no surge. It's going to create more of a dependency. It's going to exacerbate the insurgency. They both opposed the surge. And I thought that's what we wanted to hear what the military had to say. Well, instead, as you know, President Bush redeployed General Casey's and Abizaid and brought in General Petraeus. And then when people said, I want a bipartisan solution, you had it. It was called Baker-Hamilton. Baker-Hamilton was very clear. Recommendation number 20, we'll stand down when the Iraqis stand up. You know what recommendation 21 was? We're going to stand down even if the Iraqis don't stand up, because that's the only way to give them the incentives necessary to make the tough choices. And they can make those tough choices. They made the tough choices in El Salvador after 15 years, and they can make the tough choices in Iraq. We've got to make sure that they have all the necessary incentives to do it. That's why we need DFAs of this world to keep their feet to the fire. Hold them accountable. Make sure you have good, strong local candidates who get involved every day. And if you do that, we're going to have a better country for it. Thanks.
We have some programs this afternoon, but I think we got time for a couple of questions, and then we take them. So let's do a couple, and then we'll move on.
I have a question, sir. Have you gotten control of your coffee-making abilities? You might want to explain it.
Let me explain what that is. It was
Great ad.
Joe had done it. You know, it's always the same voice in the negative radio ads. So Cleveland campaign had done an ad saying, Ned Lamont votes with the Republicans on this. Ned Lamont votes to cut spending. So we hired that same voice, and we did an ad called Bad Coffee. It was, Ned Lamont makes a bad cup of coffee. Ned Lamont can't sing karaoke worth a damn. And then Senator, can we get back and talk about the real issues of the day? And it was a good ad. I mean, I was going through all these town fairs, and I had these guys coming out to me going, hey, Lamont, can you make a decent cup of coffee? Get over here. And I thought it set a nice tone for the campaign. Yeah.
Are you going to make another run at it?
Oh, you never say never. If you would ask me... If you would ask me 2 years ago would I be taking on Joe, I would have probably suggested a psychiatrist that you may want to meet with, but, you know, it's important. You can make such a difference in politics. I say that to, you know, all you folks. I'm somebody that's been involved in the community, involved writing letters, and involved in not-for-profits and teaching and the such like that. But it's, good government makes such a difference in people's lives. So if you have the right opportunity, you have an obligation to go for it. I would. Yeah.
You said the 35 and under vote was one of the strongest vote demographics for you, and I was just wondering, in your work and reaching out to those voters, you said you feel that had you had more of them actually go out and vote, that would have helped you a lot. So in reaching out to those voters, what did you do, and what did you say to mobilize the ones who did go out and vote for you? And like, what advice would you give to somebody like me who works with that age group in trying to motivate that age group to actually go and be active and go to the polls?
You'll have 150 people in that room, and young people everybody looks at the issue a slightly different way. I mean, in the war in Iraq, for example, I would go to, you know, Bridgeport, and it would be, how come we're spending $250 million a day there and we can't afford preschool for our kids? Or you talk to the veterans and they'd say we're treating our soldiers badly and we're making the world more dangerous. And you go to you know, University of Connecticut, and those kids would be back in the room saying, what type of a country are we? I mean, Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, that's not the United States of America that I know, and that's not the United States of America I want. The trick is to take that moral energy and turn that into effective politicking. I mean, make sure those kids get involved, they come into an office, you have good people there. I mean, too often I found that we're sort of sloppy in politics. So I had hundreds of volunteers sort of, you know, wanting to participate, wanting something to do, and we just weren't organized to take advantage of that. You know, and during the dog days of August, some people can drift off at that point. So I would say, get them involved and make sure you have a real way that they can check in. You can hold people accountable. There are certain numbers of calls they make. There's a certain number of doors they knock on. There's a certain number of people they get to the polls. People really want to step up if act to serve, and if I failed on something, it was not really giving them enough of a strong platform that they could act on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ned Lamont.
Yay!